Oh, we're completely surrounded by automation. It's in the car you drive, the food you eat, that package that shows up at your door. But have you ever really stopped to think about how all these incredibly complex machines actually, well, perceive the world around them? I mean, seriously, how does a giant robotic arm know exactly when a part is ready to be picked up? Or how does a bottle in line know down to the milliliter that a bottle is full? Well, the answer comes down to millions of these tiny unsung heroes called industrial sensors. This quote really just nails it. The perfect way to think about this is to imagine a PLC, that's the programmable logic controller, as the brain of the whole operation. Well, if the PLC is the brain, then sensors are its senses. Without them, that powerful brain is completely in the dark, totally clueless about the physical world it's supposed to be controlling. And here's the crucial part. Sensors are what provide the raw data, right? The essential feedback that lets the PLC's program make all those smart decisions. If that feedback is wrong, even by a little bit, the whole system can make a huge mistake. That robotic arm could crush a part instead of gently listing it. Okay, let's break it down with a super simple example. Picture a part, just moving along on a conveyor belt. A little sensor sees that the part has hit the perfect spot. Instantly, it zaps an electrical signal to the PLC, the brain, which then runs its logic and tells a cylinder, go, and it pushes the part off the line. No sensor means no signal, and no signal means no action. The entire process just grinds to a halt. So for these senses to be able to talk to the brain, they need a language. And really, it all boils down to two ways they can communicate: a simple yes or no, or a more detailed how much. On one hand, you've got your digital sensors. Just think of a basic light switch. They are either on or they are off. They send a simple, hey, I'm here signal, like a limit switch telling the PLC, yep, the safety gate is definitely closed. But on the other side, you have analog sensors. These are more like a dimmer switch. They give you a whole range of information. They answer that how much question, like a temperature sensor that gives you a precise reading, not just a simple hot or cold. All right, so now that we know how they talk, let's go on a quick tour of the most common sensors you'll find buzzing away in any smart factory. This is where things get really cool. First up, we have the proximity sensor. This is basically the machine sense of non-contact touch. The inductive ones are basically little metal detectors, creating a field to see if metal is nearby. Then you have capacitive ones, which are a bit different. They can sense almost anything you put in front of them, whether it's liquid, plastic, you name it. Next, let's give the machine the sense of sight with a photoelectric sensor. It's pretty straightforward. It shoots out a beam of light, and when an object passes by and either breaks that beam or bounces it back, the sensor goes, aha, something's there. It's a simple idea, but it's incredibly effective for everything from counting boxes to making sure caps are on bottles. Now this next one is interesting because of just how simple it is. The limit switch. It's the sense of direct physical touch. It's just a mechanical switch. When a part of a machine physically bumps into its little lever, it sends the signal. It's old school for sure, but it is unbelievably reliable. Then we get to give the machine echolocation. Seriously, just like a bat, an ultrasonic sensor sends out a little high-frequency sound pulse, and then it measures exactly how long it takes for that echo to bounce back. This is fantastic for spotting objects from a distance or for measuring the level of liquid in a big tank. The machine's sense of feeling is usually handled by pressure and temperature sensors. These are typically analog sensors, and they are absolutely crucial. They're constantly monitoring the vital signs inside hydraulic and pneumatic systems, telling the PLC if the pressure is getting dangerously high or if the temperature is just right. And finally, we've got the sense of volume and movement. Level sensors are always on watch, making sure a tank has enough liquid or green, preventing costly overflows or shortages. And flow sensors, well, they're like tiny little water wheels, measuring exactly how much liquid or gas is sipping through a pipe at any given moment. Okay, so we've got this incredible array of senses, but how do we actually wire them up? How do we physically connect their signals to the PLC brain? Well, it all comes down to good wiring practices and one very important choice. Most of these digital sensors use a standard 3-wire connection. Now, this gets a little bit technical, but trust me, it's so important. Sensors can be either syncing or sourcing. A sourcing sensor provides power on its signal line when it's activated. A syncing sensor, on the other hand, provides a path to ground. The key takeaway here is you have to match the sensor type to the PLC's input card. If you mix them up, the brain will never, ever hear what the sensor is trying to say. But of course, what happens when things go wrong? You know, when a machine suddenly goes blind because a sensor got knocked out of alignment, or it goes deaf because a wire came loose. The consequences can be huge, from a simple jam to shutting down production for hours, which can cost millions. That's when you have to know how to troubleshoot. For a technician on the floor, it's all about a logical process of elimination. First things first, check the power supply. Is the sensor even turned on? Second, you physically inspect the wiring. Is anything loose, frayed, or damaged? Third, you grab a multimeter and test the sensor's output signal directly. Is it actually sending the right message when it's triggered? And finally, you look right at the PLC's input status light to confirm if the brain is actually hearing the signal. You know, when you take a step back and really look at the big picture, the importance of these small, often totally overlooked components it's staggering. We're talking about a global market for these devices worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Right now, as we speak, millions upon millions of these sensors are quietly doing their job, forming this invisible nervous system for our automated world. They are the absolute foundation, providing the critical data that makes modern, efficient, and safe manufacturing even possible. So the crucial takeaway is this: the sensors provide the data, and the PLC makes the decisions. One just cannot function without the other. Understanding how these senses work is absolutely essential for anyone working in industrial automation, or really for anyone who's just curious about how our modern world gets built. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. We've given our machines the ability to touch, see, and feel their environment with incredible precision. So as these senses get even more sophisticated, more interconnected, you have to wonder, what new things will the factories of tomorrow be able to perceive? And what will they do with that new awareness?